Hello everybody and welcome to the Expat channel. Today's topic is about why I chose to move to Singapore as an expat. It was about 7-8 years ago when I the first time lived half a year in Hong Kong. I was an exchange student from my university during my master's degree, and I found it quite interesting living in Hong Kong and being exposed to a totally different culture. So I decided when I picked my job to pick a job that allows me to go to other countries. Now, one of the jobs you can pick is being a consultant, and as a consultant that allowed me to practically choose my location where to do my job. I started in Zurich in Switzerland in a management consulting firm, and from the very start I told them, guys, I want to move to Asia at some point, and they said, well, that's fine, after some years of experience, which you will gain here in Zurich. So that's what I did. And after 3 years working in several clients, having several projects, I then after 3 years moved to Singapore. Now, why Singapore? Singapore is probably one of the more easiest places to go to when you're an expat. It's very Western friendly, so it's not as extreme as when you move to China, certain cities which are very foreign, very difficult to get used to, food-wise, people-wise, language-wise. And Singapore is there very easy. I mean, even their main language is English, so it makes it very easy to connect with people, to build up your network. And also the expat community is quite big here in Singapore. You find people all over the world, right? You find people from the US, from Australia, from the UK, and from Switzerland as well. So it's quite a big chance for you as well to get out of your, let's say, comfort zone, to get out of your home and get exposed to a new environment. It opens up a lot of new chances as well for you. So anybody who is thinking about it, I can just say do it, and you can just profit from it. And no matter how old you are, to be honest, you can do that anytime after university or somewhere in your 30s, 40s, whenever it is. It's even market-wise, when you look at Asia in general, it's a 2-digit growing market. As it is a growing market, it's not similar, comparable to US or to European Union, where a lot of sectors are stagnating and growing on a 1-2% annually rate. Here, I'd say, for example, in a banking industry, in the insurance industry, growth rates are 10-15%, so it's very different dimensions, and that's what you get exposed to. Why did I move to Singapore? It's a bit, I mean, Singapore is comparable to Switzerland. It's a very safe country. Probably it's even safer than Switzerland, I have to be honest with you. It's very strict, obviously, right? I mean, it's forbidden to spit on the floor, it's forbidden to have chewing gums with you, it's forbidden a lot of things, and that's okay. I mean, that's why everything is so orderly, and even corruption is at zero, and criminal rates are very low. So that's good, right? That's where you can grow yourself and where you feel safe. And so it's a good city to start off with when you want to or thinking of moving to a new continent or a new country. Asia is really a place you should consider on your options. Usually, depending from which country you're coming from, or salaries in Singapore are quite good. So talking about salaries, it could be that your salary might be slightly lower, let's say in Singapore compared to the US, but do consider that your tax rate will be significantly lower here in Singapore as well. So when you're talking about, let's say you're coming from the US, having an income tax of 30% and probably also your assets being taxed as well, including your dividends and any other incomes you have. Here in Singapore, you only pay taxes for your income. And that can vary. I would say it's around 15%, don't get me wrong. Should be around 15% of your yearly income that is being taxed. And that's not a lot compared to other countries. Especially when we look to the European Union, where we have some countries around 40-50% of your income. So, I mean, that's quite a big benefit. And do calculate this in when we're talking about salaries here in Singapore. Investment-wise, I mean, it's a big chance when you earn money here in Singapore to do investments in a much easier way, meaning there is no tax on dividends, there is no tax on capital gains. You get your dividends paid out, and there is just no tax that you need to think of. The only tax I'm thinking of is right now my income tax. Whatever you've earned, you will never ever have to think of paying that to any government. So that's a big benefit, especially when we talk about long-term horizon of investment, building up a passive income portfolio. I think there is no other better place to be than here in Singapore. I would say there are some other countries as well. I mean, Hong Kong as well is very, very, let's say, lean on a tax perspective. And it's also a country to look at. But right now, I mean, politically, it's a bit difficult. So I would say the only country right now you can look at is Singapore. And we can also see that when you read the news, a lot of capital outflow from China, from Hong Kong, moving their assets over to Singapore, even in the property. And as you can see, this building here, quite a nice one, this one. A lot of foreigners buy apartments here. They do have quite a high stamp duty for foreigners such as from China or from other countries. When I'm not wrong, it's 20%. So on top of the price of an apartment or a condo here, they pay an additional 20% on top. And a lot of foreigners do that, and especially from China, people who are considering buying an apartment here, they do pay additional 20% on top. So prices, I mean, looking at apartment prices, they're very, very high already here in Singapore, one of the highest. And I mean, even a one-room condo costs already $700,000 in around CBD and some other areas, which is quite a high price. It's not a house with a garden. It's really just you're in one of hundreds of units, one of them, and you maybe have a small balcony, but that's it. Prices, they increase, let's say, very slowly. The government has control over the prices. That's why these high stamp duties, it holds back foreign investment quite a bit. They don't want to have prices exploding, such as in Hong Kong. So price increase is quite decent in Singapore, not extreme at all. So it's not a concern of having a bubble here. So this is my story on how and why I moved to Singapore. I'm still here now. I'm 2.5 years now in Singapore, and I really like it. I can stay here another few years probably. What I then also did, I came in with a work permit. So my company provided the work permit for me, and I then applied for a PEP, a personalized employment pass. And that allows me to be, let's say, not locked or not related directly to my consulting firm, but having my own personal employment pass, which allows me to let's say I decide to quit my job or I lose my job, I can stay in Singapore for maximum half a year, look for another job, and I don't need another company to provide me with an employment pass. So the PEP is something to consider once you are settled in Singapore. You need, I think, a minimum salary of 144,000 Sing dollar. It's around 100,000 US dollar per year. I actually also did the driving license, but to be honest, the car in Singapore is super expensive. So let's say a new Toyota Prius costing 50,000 US dollars, multiply that double or 3 times, and that's the price you pay in Singapore. That's why also the streets are not packed as they are in Jakarta or in Bangkok. It's quite under control. Traffic, I mean, standing in traffic for 10-15 minutes is already long. Here, public transportation is very, very well developed. So we have modern MRTs. Even the bus you can take, they have fast track lanes. It's very well developed. So people don't really need a car here. It's more of a status symbol to have and own a car in Singapore. Actually, I converted my driving license, my Swiss driving license, to the Singapore driving license. And when you convert, the only thing you have to do is do a theoretical exam. It's a 50 minutes exam or 1 hour exam. You need to answer around 50 questions, and that's it. And then you are allowed and get your license for being eligible to drive here in Singapore. Your foreign driving license will expire, or you cannot use it for more than 1 year here in Singapore. So you do have to, and if you want to drive in Singapore, after living 1 year in Singapore, you will have to transfer your foreign driving license with a local one. But I do keep both. I keep the Swiss driving license. I have now the Singapore driving license, and that's it. Food can be quite cheap, to be honest. There are hawker centers. These are big areas, 3-4 floors of restaurants, small tiny restaurants where you can get a meal for 3-4 US dollars. That's 5-6 Sing dollars. You can get quite a decent meal. A huge variety of choice. And so food here is quite cheap and really good. And you have a huge variety, which wherever you come from, you will be really, so I mean, Singapore's are foodies. You have a huge amount of choice, and you will find and you will try so many new things, also in regards to food, which is really exciting to have here. What's next to food? Living. Obviously living. I mean, I live in a studio, quite a small one, but a high floor, very central to an MRT. I pay about a bit more than 2,000 Sing dollar. It's around 1,500 US dollars per month. And usually you do 1 year, at least minimum 1 year contracts. But what usually apartment owners want is 2 year contracts. There are other options. You can use Hamlet.com. They have more, let's say, flexible contracts where you can stay or you can cancel a contract after 1 month if you want. So every month you can decide you want to stay in Singapore or you want to stay in that apartment. But usually it's shared apartment with other, let's say it's more professional people, which do give us options. We don't have Airbnb here. That's illegal in Singapore. Driving, usually you can use taxis. They're quite cheap. You can also use Grab. You can use GoCheck, and they don't have Uber, so it's only GoCheck, Grab, which you can use as an option. And it's quite cheap as well. So driving from the airport to CBD, so that's the central hub in Singapore, it costs around 20-25 Sing dollar. That's around 14 to 20 US dollars, which is a reasonable price, I would say. What else? I mean, alcohol here is quite expensive. Singapore has a tax on alcoholic beverage. So usually when I'm traveling outside of Singapore and coming in again, usually I bring 2 bottles of wine or something like that, and get it cheaper either at the airport, tax-free, or from my home in Switzerland or wherever I am outside of Singapore, and bring it into Singapore for a bit cheaper prices. Good, that was it from my side. I hope you liked this session. Some experience from an expat living here in Singapore. If you have any questions or anything else you would like me to talk about, leave it down in the comments. Give me a thumbs up and see you next time. Bye guys.